Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis. Kilbin is the name, and Hearthstone is the game. And this is my latest Decksperiment, where I take a crazy cool, interesting idea for a deck, try to build that deck live right here in this video, on the spot, and then take that deck out onto the ranked ladder to see it in action. Now you might be asking, why would anyone do that? Well, first off, it's just fun to explore new ideas, but secondly, I think it helps to see someone else building a deck and think about how to build a deck and the different aspects of deck creation so that you yourself can both build new decks but also think about proper deck construction, how to replace cards, where cards fit in with mana curves, all kinds of fun stuff that you can learn just by observing. So for today's Decksperiment, my inspiration essentially comes from the new Mean Streets of Gadgetzan card, Cryomancer. This is a card I don't think I've ever seen play. It's an interesting, unusual effect. Battlecry gain 2/2 if an enemy is frozen, so that theoretically turns this into a 5-mana 7/7 if that condition is met. Now in the past we've seen a card like the Flame Wreath Faceless, the 4-mana 7/7, be pretty dominant. So this one doesn't feel too far off from the Flame Wreath Faceless. If it does hit that condition, it's 1 mana more, but it doesn't have the overload, so it's not quite as punishing from a tempo standpoint. But that condition that a minion, or actually not just a minion, any enemy is frozen, is an interesting one that I don't think has really ever existed. Of course, there's Freeze Mage as a deck archetype, but that's more about just stalling the board, accruing tons of damage in your hand, and then unleashing all of that damage in one turn to kill your opponent. But freezing minions and freezing enemy attackers with weapons can also just be sort of a tempo advantage, where you stall out their board. It allows you to build up a board of your own and perhaps just gain enough value or a big enough advantage on the board that you can hit your opponent really hard with just a few burst spells. So I think what I'm going to try to do is build an Ice Mage, which is clearly different than a Freeze Mage, because it's not about that burn in hand, but instead about the board and minions, and taking advantage of the tempo stall that freezes actually provide. So that said, I really don't know that this deck will be any good. I don't know what it's going to even look like just yet, but I know that we're going to start off with Cryomancer at the very least. Now, as far as the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan cards available to Mage, there's another one here, Freezing Potion, a nice 0-mana spell. Allows us to freeze an enemy. That's got some instant synergy with our Cryomancer, but unfortunately I think the problem with this card is that it's just too weak, right? It doesn't do enough. A card like Ice Lance, which I guess we can pull up here just to make sure everybody knows the card if you don't know every single card, does a very similar thing, but it has a secondary condition that if an enemy minion was already frozen, or an enemy hero at that, then you can deal 4 damage instead. So this does the same thing at a base level, but has that extra utility for only 1 extra mana. 4 damage is very efficient. So a card like Ice Lance is 10,000 times better than the Freezing Potion here from Gadgetzan. So I don't actually think Freezing Potion is a card I want to run in this deck. It just takes up a card draw, so you could, for instance, top deck Freezing Potion and you'd be pretty disappointed because it just doesn't make enough of an impact. So that card slot in your deck has some value, and sacrificing that slot and that opportunity to draw something valuable is just too much for Freezing Potion to actually fit. So that said, let's go ahead and just switch over to standard cards available to Freeze Mage. And I think we can try a couple keywords here to find the types of cards that we're looking for that will freeze stuff so that our Cryomancer can actually be successful. But that said, I don't think the Cryomancer alone is going to be enough to carry this deck. Obviously, a 5-mana 7/7 can be scary. It can dominate games, but it's not going to do it all on its own. So we need to find damage, we need to find removal, we need other stuff to do as well. But I can see some cards that I want right away. Ice Lance Frostbolt's a cool combo. Ice Lance is just really powerful. I think we want a Frost Nova too, because it's just a cheap instant freeze against a ton of stuff, so it's very efficient in that regard. I think we want Cone of Cold, and this is another interesting card that came out in Whispers of the Old Gods. It's sort of an alternative to a Flame Waker. Flame Waker being the 3-mana 2/4. Whenever you cast a spell, it would deal pings. It hits a minion for a ping. But this one, instead of pinging the board, actually freezes random enemies instead. So it's sort of a Flame Waker that shoots out icicles and can be a big stall on minions, can freeze out weapons, can do all the stuff we want to do in this deck. Now, I think the real problem with this card is that it's a 4-mana 2/4. Flame Waker's a 3-mana 2/4, and that's a very, very big difference, because on 3 mana you're still thinking about trading into 1 and 2 drops if you play that on turn 3 or if you coin it out on turn 2. But on turn 4, this just dies to a lot more stuff. It doesn't have quite the same impact. So there's also the problem, of course, that when you only spend 3 mana, it's cheaper to get spells out alongside a Flame Waker. With Demented Frostcaller, that's 1 less mana you actually have to cast spells to activate the card, so that can be problematic. Water Elemental is a card we want, and Blizzard's a card we want too. Those both apply more freezes, but you can see already we're kind of heavy on 4-drops, so that's maybe we're going to have to tap out there on 4. That could just be problematic. So, Frost Ellie, actually, I forgot about this card. This isn't a card you see in constructed format a ton, but it actually makes a lot of sense. It's just a good body. That controlled instant freeze effect is valuable. You can freeze an enemy hero or do whatever you need to do. So I actually like Frost Elemental in this deck as well. So that puts us at 18 cards. We have ways to stall out the board with Cone of Cold, Frost Nova. We have single target stuff with Ice Lance and Frost Bolt that can be both damage or removal or just a stall. We have more freezing with Demented Frost Caller, just value minions, more board stall. That's a nice little core of cards for an Ice Mage. I mean, we kind of just grabbed everything, obviously, that said Ice. Shatter is interesting. So we changed our keyword here to find Frozen. This is just hard removal, and that's going to be really, really cheap hard removal. Usually a card like this just isn't very exciting to see because you don't have that many ways to activate a freeze effect in a normal Mage deck, say Reno Mage, for instance. So when you get this off the Kabbalist Tome, it's just not that exciting. It's very hard to activate. But in our deck, it's actually going to be super easy to activate. So this will allow us to kill really big stuff very, very efficiently and cheaply, which is nice. So, what other pieces do we need in this deck to make it good? We've got 20 cards. That means we have 10 cards left. You can see our curve. It's probably a little imbalanced right now, so 3 and 5 have some gaps, obviously. I think we need a more early game focus than we have currently, just because there's a lot of fast decks out there on the meta. We also need a win condition or card draw. Right now this is a mid-range deck, but we're still going to have to be able to have enough minions and enough damage to actually do something, because what good does it do to stall out and freeze your opponent's board if there's no way for you to play enough minions to do damage to win the game, or at least kill your opponent and win the game. So we need to find some curve considerations, some win conditions, maybe swap things around to find a couple more minions just to apply pressure. So Mana Worm is a fantastic card against Pirates just because it's a 1/3 for 1. It's also a card that is really good if you can stall out the board and your opponent can't make trades. If you're casting a Frost Nova, if you're casting Cone of Cold, and they can never quite kill your Mana Worm because they just happen to not draw removal, this could be a 6/3 that just keeps hitting their face. So I like Mana Worm a lot here. I think that's going to be a nice addition. Also helps us with those early game considerations we had. A card like Sorcerer's Apprentice is something you see in Tempo Mage. And, running this deck kind of parallel to a Tempo Mage build makes some sense. It's trying to do a lot of the same things. Just have spells and make a big swing turn on the board with certain cards. So that's a consideration to make. We also need to consider card draw, right? Like, we don't have any card draw in the deck right now. Some minions, some stalls, but no card draw. So that's a consideration. We could run Ice Block and Ice Barrier just for their names, but I don't really know that they accomplish what we're trying to do. That's more the Freeze Mage style than I think what the Ice Mage is all about. But Arcane Intellect is certainly a consideration to make. I'm a little worried that it's just too slow if we spend 3 mana playing Arcane Intellect, we don't develop the board, we don't stall our opponents, it might just make us fall behind. So I'm not 100% sure on that just yet, but I do know that we need card draw, so it's a consideration to make. So we have hard removal, so some of these things like polymorphs really aren't important. I do think we need damage. And we've got the Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Fireball set now. So this is 12, this is another 6 for 18, and this is theoretically another 8. That's a 26 damage package. Now, we can't necessarily cast all of that in the same turn, but it would help if we had a Sorcerer's Apprentice, so we could get a lot closer. Something like Emperor Thaurissan could also achieve that goal. So this gives us essentially a win condition, right? This is a way to kill people. But as you start to add that package into the deck, you start to ask yourself, is this really just Freeze Mage? Freeze Mage with less consistent card draw and less removal. And that's a perhaps problematic concern. But, you know, Freeze Mage, Ice Mage, maybe it should look a bit like Freeze Mage. That's obviously a tried and true archetype. So if we're starting to look like Freeze Mage, maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. So one other thing to do is, you know, what power cards can fit. We've kind of gotten a curve that looks a little better, perhaps still too fat on the 4 spot, but I don't really see anything I want to cut. Demented Frostcaller feels like a weak card, but I think is pretty central to the theme of this Decksperiment. So, you know, if we cut all the cards that are bad just because they don't fit, you know, if we take out the Demented Frostcaller, the Cryomancer, and the Frost Ellie to put in better cards, then of course we've lost the spirit of the experiment and kind of defeated the purpose. So I don't think that's a good decision to make. So Blood Mage Thanatos is a great card for basically any spell-oriented deck, right? This guy can just do really, really cool stuff because he's card draw, but also spell damage. So if, you know, we do hit that Sorcerer's Apprentice, Blood Mage, Emperor Thaurissan discount, we can do a ton of damage, much like a Freeze Mage. So that's always an option to consider. I'm just running through here the other legendary cards. A lot of good cards here, but I'm not seeing anything that stands out as really, really important for us to play. So, you know, something like Ragnaros would probably fit fine in this deck, just as a mid-range deck. Ragnaros is always a nice card to sort of top off your list, because it's damage, it's hard to remove, it can be minion removal, it can be face damage. It's just an annoying card. So, and a card with an instant effect, even though, you know, it's at the end of your turn, it still is guaranteed to go off when you play it. So I'm just, you know, shuffling through here. I don't really see much else to consider. So, I mean, this feels like a complete list. I think the only question I have right now is, with the Demented Frostcaller, do we have enough cheap spells to actually make this thing count? So, you know, if it's like turn 7 or 8, we could cast an Arcane Intellect, but that's just going to freeze one enemy. I don't know that that's impactful enough, because it could freeze a 1/1. It could just freeze the enemy hero in a matchup where they don't have a weapon, right? It feels very, very weak. So if we added in cheaper spells, it would be certainly much easier to activate that card, but I don't know that we want to limit our list. Another concern is that we really don't have that much early game. We have Mana Worms if we hit them, we have some Frostbolts to kill stuff, but like Shatter, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Ice Lance aren't really cards we want to use in the early game. And we also have weak 3-drops, so it's really turn 4 before we start to catch up and stabilize. So I'm curious if adding in an early game answer might just work better in many ways. Something to contest. You know, a card you always see nowadays is Mistress of Mixture. Just seems to be tossed in to decks just to counter really aggressive starts, but I don't want that because that heals our opponents, of course, right? So that one doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We consider other early game cards in the neutral set. Everybody's running Acidic Swamp Ooze, but we'll need that less than often because we do have freezes to freeze out weapons, so it doesn't seem that important. Doomsayer is a really, really interesting consideration to make, just because we do have so many ways to combo with it. The only downside is that, unlike a Freeze Mage who wants to Frost Nova Doomsayer the board, there will be instances where we have minions on the board that enable us to freeze, or we use the freezes to enable our Cryomancer. So when we have minions out, Doomsayer gets much, much worse. So this is only good when we're playing desperately from behind and gets worse with our board strategy. So I really want to run this. I think instinctually it makes a lot of sense. I'm just trying to find a place, right? Like, what cards do we cut? And I don't really know the answer to that. I think everything here is fairly important. I'd probably cut the Frost Callers if I was really trying to build the best possible perfect deck. But I want to include these mostly to test them, mostly to see them in action. So as a result of that, I don't know that I can cut anything else. Maybe one Frost Nova and swap in one Doomsayer just as a turn 2 play occasionally. The Frost Nova is so cheap, but the Cone of Cold probably does the same thing as the Frost Nova and has more flexibility and more total options. So I guess we'll make that as a compromise. But again, ideally, I think probably if I was being totally honest with myself, I'd cut the Frost Caller, keep the Frost Novas, and add in the Doomsayers. But, you know, Doomsayer is not a great follow-up to Mana Worm always, so we'll have to see. But, yeah, I think that's going to do it for my Ice Mage Decksperiment. That's 30 cards, so let's lock that in. Give you one last shot here to look at the list. I'm very curious. You can see we have a big gap on 3 and 5. Oh, that makes me nervous. Just what are we going to do on turn 3 ever? What 3-drops can we add in? Is a Flame Waker maybe just worth it? Because it's the kind of thing that if minions are frozen, it tends to live. Perhaps Forgotten Torch is a good option. Are there any good 3-mana standard minions? Bronzebeard is good with basically only Cryomancer, it looks like, so that's not it. Cold Light Oracle is kind of intriguing just because I'm worried about our card draw. I know I locked in the deck, but now that I see the curve, I think we have to make a change here. Something like Cabal Courier is kind of cool. Just because it gives us options and some flexibility. It's an early minion. Mind Control Tech's nice removal. I know a lot of people get frustrated at this point in the Decksperiment where it's like, just finish the deck, show me some gameplay. But, you know, it's those last 2 or 3 cards that really determine what a deck can do and what it's capable of. So I think you have to spend a lot of time here and be very, very careful. You know, Twilight Flamecaller is kind of intriguing. Maybe doesn't fit thematically, but it's a nice early minion to contest boards. It works well with stuff like Cone of Cold, just to soften up a board and then finish it off with Cone of Cold over time. Well, it's an option. Could also just run another Doomsayer and call it a 3-drop, right? That's what I really want to do. So maybe we'll cut the... we're going to do what I didn't want to do. We're going to run one Demented Frost Caller. We're going to cut one of them and sneak in another Doomsayer. Now that looks like we're pretty heavy on 2, but these Doomsayers really kind of count as 3-drops too, right? Sometimes you just play them on 3. Our hero power is not awful either, so that's always an option. Plus stuff like Sorcerer's Apprentice, Arcane Intellect can be a cheaper play to get stuff out. So we'll try this list. This will be the official locked-in Ice Mage. I don't know that that was a good change or a bad change, but this is what would make me most comfortable. So now that I've made the deck, now that I've built the Ice Mage, we're going to go get stomped on the ranked ladder. I'm up to rank 7 right now. This is really still pretty early in the season. It takes me a day or 2 to get these videos out, so day or 2 behind the publication date here, and going to be a lot of legend players, a lot of great decks here at this rank. So we're going to find some real competition. Probably a lot of shaman, fair bit of priest, maybe some other mages. So into the grinder we go with shaman. We'll just have to see how this goes. I think we need some more proactive stuff in our 6-drops. I mean, Thalnos, it's something to play. It doesn't work very well with a lot of our deck because spell damage is really only impactful with things like Cone of Cold. But we'll keep it just in case it matters. If nothing else, it's a card cycle, which could be important if our mulligan goes really south and we get like 3 6-drops, right? We just have to play this on 2 to find cards, I think. So this is a neat combo, but you know, as a 4 into 5, I don't know that it works all that well just because we're not going to have a spell to cast to freeze anything to make this work. Plus, just the way freezes work sometimes, right? They pop off by the time you play your own minion. So because it's frozen on your opponent's turn. So that might be a fundamental flaw with the design of this card. We'll have to find out, obviously. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and coin the Doomsayer here. It could feel a little early, but if we do it next turn, it might just be too late. You know, if he plays a Claw, this gets buffed to a 2/2. He's got the Claw, that's 4 damage, and Lightning Bolt means he can kill it if we wait a turn. If we go this turn, he doesn't have nearly as much mana to work with. I know that this restricts me quite a bit for my next turn, but this could also stop a Totem Golem. It probably just forces him to hero power here. Double Lightning Bolt would actually kill it, but I don't know that it would be worth it necessarily. He's going to go ahead and develop the Claw. So if we'd played this a turn later, we would have been screwed, basically. It would have been much, much easier for him to kill it, and he most likely would have been able to. Yeah, we'll throw this down exactly as I mentioned. It's going to die to the Claw for free, but it's just a card cycle. The spell damage will not be relevant for a very long time. Would only matter if we had a Frostbolt or something of the sort, but even that's a turn 4 play, so that's not even relevant yet. I just need to find a card to play soon, because these are a little too slow. It's also too slow. Also too slow. We can't even ping that. That's 0 value. So it looks like we'll play the Frostcaller. I'd rather have a Water Elemental 10 times over. It's a much, much better minion. As I say that, I don't know that I can play this into the Flamed Wreath. I may just have to play the Frostcaller. No, I don't have a spell to activate the Frostcaller though, so I guess I do have to play this. It's going to be a very easy trade. We can shatter it if we want, but we'll probably just wait and play our Cryomancer instead, and then Blizzard the following turn to lock down his board, depending on what he plays. Our Cryomancer probably lives through that experience. He might just go face too. That could change our line. And regardless, I think we have to freeze this just because it's so much damage. And our deck doesn't have any survivability, right? Other than stalling out, we don't do anything to protect our health or to regain health. So I really wish I could play this instead, but I can't. So I have to sacrifice the minion, have to play the Cryomancer. He's got a lot of stuff out. I think this lives though, right? If he does kill it, he's going to have to trade some minions in, it looks like. Or hero power it perhaps, so it takes a lot of effort for him to get it. That's worse because he can't roll totems anymore. He's gonna go face, so we can Blizzard, and we can Blizzard and go face, and then the following turn we can freeze the Flame Breath perhaps. Maybe we'll ping off something to kill it. We could... I don't know, we'll have to figure it out. This needs to die, right? We can't just keep freezing stuff forever, although I guess that is the idea of the deck. We'll try that. This is cool. I mean, I don't know if it's working, but we're seeing kind of what the deck is designed to do. It's just lock out the board, hit face with big minions. That was sort of the idea, so... Looks like we're dead, though. God. Shaman is really interactive and fun, guys. Look at that damage. God. And the hero power. Exact lethal. Man. He just did 12 damage from an empty board. That happens. That's a perfect hand. So, you know... That's kind of the worst hand for us to test against this deck, admittedly, because we're about stopping minions, not stopping spells. So that is a weakness, obviously. And I'm not hiding the fact that I think this deck is going to have weaknesses. It's not perfect by any means. We're just trying to see if there's anything here that's worth salvaging, worth building around. See if we can make this idea work at all. This is very, very likely handlock, and I have to think about how to beat a handlock deck with this kind of deck, and I don't really know the answer to that. I think it has to be through damage, I guess. So we'll try to stay alive, find our damage. Shatter I'm keeping simply because of cards like Mountain Giant, maybe even a Twilight Drake. If those get out on the board and live too long, we're just going to die to it. It's just going to kill all our minions for free. So we have to be careful. This is something we could maybe play going into his turn 4 to stop that. Oh, I wish we had Life Tap in this deck. It would be such a better fit than Ping, because we really need consistent card draw. Now, I know we don't have that much, but... So he's going into coin 4. He could coin a 4-drop. You know, the coin with a handlock style deck, arena lock, whatever you want to call it, with a control style warlock where they're life tapping. The coin is awkward because you don't hit your Mountain Giant perfectly. So he may want to coin out a 4-drop this next turn, which means we could stop it with the Doomsayer. He can't coin out Mountain Giant, but he can coin out Twilight Drake. But I think I'm mostly worried about the Mountain Giant, so I think I'm actually just going to ping again. He'll probably end up playing something like an Imp Gang Boss, maybe tossing an Earthen Ring Farseer or a Mind Control Attack. So now the Doomsayer actually works pretty nicely, because it's going to be difficult for him to kill it with the Imp Gang Boss. Even Shadow Bolt doesn't do the job cleanly. Shadow Bolt Mortal Coil does. That's his best play, I suspect, but I think he just has to pass. He can't even life tap or he burns a card. So unless he has that exact answer, he can't play the Twilight Drake or the Mountain Giant, and this is just a perfect tempo swing for us. It's exactly what we needed to happen. Just shut out his turn completely. Unfortunately, we don't have a great follow-up, but we do have some damage coming together, right? Like, this is looking nice. The question is, do we throw down the Sorcerers, or do we try to save it for a big discounted turn? This is 2, this is 1, that's 3, this is 3, is 6, that's 0. 6 mana turn. I think this does damage if we play it, though. I think this hits his face once. He didn't have Shadow Bolt Mortal Coil. He could have just the Shadow Bolt, but that's not even that efficient against this. We have another Sorcerer's Apprentice, so there's a chance, you know, that we get the other one in time to set up a combo. We also have Thorison, of course, to set up some damage. So if he plays a big minion, we just freeze it with Frost Ellie and go face. And we're probably looking at close to lethal really soon. Obviously, Reno is always there, so we can't use our damage until it kills him. We have to line it up in such a way that that we secure the kill. We can't burn him and hope to finish it later. That's fine. I can deal with that pretty easily. In fact, this will be a fine play. So, for instance, we have 8 damage right now. And next turn we could theoretically do 9 plus 4 is 13 plus 8. So if nothing changes, if these live, we'd have exact lethal. If he just does something like play Emperor Thorison, for instance, the game is over. I don't think that's super likely just yet, but we'll probably Blizzard regardless. This will die and we'll stall whatever else he plays. Ooh, that might mean the game is over. He doesn't have much mana left. 2 mana. There's nothing that can kill this for 2 mana. Unless he gets a 1 mana spell off Kazakis. Is the game just over? Yeah, I think so. Let's do the math again. That's 8. This is 6. That puts us at 14 plus 3. Puts us at 17 plus 4. Puts us at 21. Have to get the order right, of course, to make sure the Ice Lance hits correctly. We actually even have a ping to seal the deal, but hey, it worked. That worked. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I think we played that about as well as we could have. Had the right stuff in hand at the right time. Made the right call with the Sorcerer's Apprentice, by the way. Made the right call with the Doomsayer. That actually comes from me just playing a lot of Reno Lock and understanding how their turns work. It's been a deck I've actually climbed up to 7 with. So, climbed from 9 to 7 with Reno Lock. But yeah, that was cool. I mean, the freeze on the Frost Ellie really made a difference because it saved the 3/2 from trading into our 3/2, which saved some damage. It also just deposited a big 5/5 body that he couldn't address immediately, and the damage in hand just lined it all up. Against Priest, Water Ellie's so bad against Shadow Word Pain that I'm hesitant to keep it. The thing is, though, we might play a minion before that dies too. But I really want to get out fast with Mana Worms, so I think I'm just going to hard mulligan for Mana Worms. Because this is likely Dragon Priest. We want to get out to a good start, or we want to get some Doomsayers maybe to kill stuff. He's going to have a lot of minions coming out, and they're going to be big, so we need to stall. I can't coin the Apprentice into that or anything, so we just kind of have to pass. Worm Rest here is going to be trouble. We'll have to just ping. I don't even know if we can ping a minion, though, because that sets up a good card draw for him. Nether Spite's less problematic. That's scary always. It's always Draconid Operative in my experience, so we'll have to see. Yeah, I think we just ping face. Next turn we can coin the Water Ellie. Maybe Fireball, Twilight Dragon after that, if he plays one. Shadow Word Pain would be bad, but he might just want to go for the 4-drop. That's tough. He can do 6 damage with the board, but you know he sacrifices a lot to do it, so we'll go ahead and try this. He might just play the dragon and go face, in which case we'll Fireball, probably hit the, I guess the Talon Priest. I don't know. Probably just the Nether Spite actually to kill it instead of setting up a heal. Even though it's the weakest minion, it just means it's harder for him to heal something and gain value out of his hero power on 5. It also puts us at 5 on this minion, which means Blackwing Corruptor's a little more awkward. Probably he'd use the Twilight Whelp to trade in and get this frozen for a substantial length of time, which would in turn set up our Cryomancer. But all of that is hypothetical on the fact that he plays the Twilight Guardian, which we don't know that he will. So let's just see what he does first and then figure out our line of play after that. I don't love my hand, but it's not bad, right? We've got some... Whoa! Not a card I expected to see. Pretty cool, though. Yeah, so... Fireball's kind of bad against all of this stuff. Pretty bad. If we attack here, this goes down to 4, and he can't really do 4 very clean. So I guess we could Fireball the 3/4, attack here. It's not by any means the best play in history, but it's something. He'd have to use both of these minions to trade, freeze them. We can perhaps get a Cryomancer off if this thing lives, and we're able to set that up. Could have also used a Shatter there, but I don't think these are good enough just yet. Like Blizzard Shatter is going to be really, really strong at some point, so... That's bad just because it's a lot of damage, and we're really low already. So it's a big risk. Oh, Frost Nova is such a good play right now for me. Wow, cool. So we'll Frost Nova, and we actually don't even have to Shatter yet, because I can Blizzard next turn. And that means I can hero power this turn. I don't need to, though, if I Blizzard next turn. Maybe I do just go ahead and Shatter, because that's going to be hard to kill eventually. I mean, even with Blizzard, he's going to be healing it up every turn, and like he's going to be doing stuff with that card. He can heal up here, but we do gain a damage. This is still going to be hard for Priest to kill at 1 health. You know, he might Holy Nova. That'd be fine. Power Word Shield. Oh, there is the Holy Nova. Jeez, that's annoying. You know, we could just go for the Frost Ellie here on the bigger guy to play a minion. Save the Blizzard for when there's more stuff out. We'd have 4 damage on the board, but we're at 10. So I don't think he's got any way to kill me just yet. And then that means this minion can actually start to do stuff with the Blizzard next turn. We could Blizzard 2 straight turns, so that'd be 4 damage on the board. Plus whatever this guy does. I guess we are done. It's probably got like a Divine Spirit stupid combo. I don't know what he's got. What's he got to kill me? Blackwing Corruptor is 3. Plus 4 is 7. Leroy? I don't know what it is. You get a fireball off me? Oh yeah, fireball. Ugh. No, that happens. That's tough. Yeah, we just didn't get off to a fast enough start, I think. I felt like that game was pretty close to turning the corner. In hindsight, we should have blizzarded instead of doing the 5-5. I'm not sure that was a winning line of play either, though. We could have held out for a couple turns. If we'd maybe found a Doomsayer, it would have been good. Did we have a Doomsayer? I don't think we did. We didn't have the mana for a Blizzard Doomsayer for a while, though. That's one of the issues. Yeah, that could have gone better, obviously. Mage, this is almost like certainly Reno Mage, which is going to be a problem for us if he finds Ice Block before we kill him. Just because, you know, if he Ice Block Renos, we just don't have the damage, I don't think, to do that. And our removal is going to be more or less useless against the Reno Mage too. Just because they're not about building the board. So this will be a challenging matchup, to say the least. And when you think about it, I think Shaman's a challenging matchup. I think Dragon Priest is probably not our best matchup. I think Reno Mage is a fairly weak matchup, which means more or less the most prominent and popular decks in the meta might all be bad matchups for this kind of deck. So maybe this just isn't meant to work right now. Maybe Cryomancer is a decent card that will someday be good, but that day is yet to be reached. So this is one time when it's probably okay to Arcane Intellect. It's not too slow. I think it's fine. But again, like, look at our hand. There's just not a lot here to work with. Like, what are we going to do? We don't care about freezing his face. We can Doomsayer, but what does it actually accomplish? Not much. I guess we'll play this Frost Color out. we'll emote just because this is such an unusual play that we want people to recognize that fact. And ooh, Freeze Bros. Freeze Bros. I think Fireball is as much as we need the burst. I don't have any other really good spells here to freeze. I mean, we could Cone of Cold, I guess. The freeze on the Frost Color would be wasted, though. Am I ever going to get a better Cone of Cold, I guess is the question, right? I think I have to save the Fireball, guys. I know it's kind of stupid. I guess not. I guess if we get minions out, it's just as valuable. It's not a very threatening board, but it's something. In case he somehow he innervates Medivh somehow, this freeze could be helpful. But of course, it's totally useless. I've never even heard this card though. He said freeze. That's kind of funny. So the Frost Alley won't be a bad play, especially if there's a minion to freeze. Might see a Kazakus or something. What else do they have on 5? Not a lot. Emperor Thor's in here. Oh no, Refreshment Vendor. Alright, that's fine. We can just stall this guy out. Can't quite as easily stall that guy out. So, you know, if we Frostbolt, we can kill it with a ping. It's not my favorite play. Cone of Cold, does that kill it? Cone of Cold puts this to 3, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I guess Cone of Cold is actually better. Might cost us a little bit of face damage, but there's never going to be this many minions out again. This would be awesome against a warrior. Like, it's working. It's doing a freeze. It's just we're not going to get any value out of that freeze. This is a nice little 7 damage burst. It's something. But again, like, how are our minions ever going to get through this? I just don't know. That's cool, but this... Again, see, like, the freeze happened. Now we can't play this. Like, we can Frostbolt, obviously. There's ways to get this out. I think I'd rather just go ahead and do this guy. Mirror Entity punishes me pretty hard, but nobody's running that, so it's almost certainly Ice Block. Which, again, is bad. That's what we don't want. That means we have to beat him with minions, and then after he Renos, probably we have to beat him with Burst. So I don't know that we have enough minions in our deck to do that. Because he's got Flame Strike, he's got Kazakis removal eventually. It's going to be really challenging for us to win this value matchup. He's pinging the 2/4. Oh, he just wanted to get up the flame. Yeah, that makes sense. That's fine. So again, how do you get this thing out? How do you? It just doesn't work very well. I need a cheap enough spell to combo. I have two. Obviously, I see them, guys. I get that they're there. I understand. But I need to save these. I have to save these for damage, I think. Maybe the 7/7's worth more. I don't know. We'll Frostbolt it this turn and play the 5, the Cryomancer if we have to. It's a pretty good turn by him. We're going to have trouble killing this now. Blizzard feels sort of good. I need the Frostbolt to hit the Azure Drake here, right? Like, this is what we need. Or the, excuse me, the freeze effect on the Demented Frostcaller needs to hit the Azure Drake. It could hit his face, which would just be a total waste. Okay, well that's better. I like this. I mean, it's cool. Again, I don't think it's good. This is a pretty spicy fireball target, but I don't think it's good, but it's cool. I like what we're doing. That was a neat little 50-50. It's fun to see that in action. You know, we can stall out for a while here with Blizzard, but again, this is where the Doomsayer's bad. Like, when am I going to get to play Doomsayer when I have the board? Never. There's no reason to do that. Acolyte of Pain makes Blizzard fairly worse. Not much worse now, of course, but yeah, I'll just I'll Blizzard, go face, start pinging this off. No reason to waste an Ice Lance on it, I don't think. But I need that other Frostbolt to activate these bad boys. But I really need to kill him with this minion. Because again, you know, Reno is just so disastrous to us. We might just have to, if it looks like we're going to fall behind and he's going to turn the corner on stabilizing the board, we might just have to go for it and try to pop his block, hope he doesn't have the Reno, and just ping him to death. You know what I mean? Like, we may just have to go all in and concede on the Reno. Because, you know, if this goes too long, he's going to win the value game. Here comes Kazakis. Like, that's armor right there. So even, you know, he might have a second out now. Even without Reno. He might also be able to polymorph this minion with a 5-mana spell that's going to be pretty efficient next turn. So in other words, I might just have to go face right now. And hit him with a fireball or something. This minion would be really cool if it also applied a freeze effect. It would be so much better. God, the value. It's so stupid. He just got 4 cards. He just generated 4 great cards, no doubt. Who knows what these are? Second Ice Block, everything we don't want. So, we can pop his block. I think we're going to do exactly what I just described. It's 7 plus 6 is 13. This is 14. The double Ice Lance will put him down to 1 and pop his block. Again, there's a very high likelihood any of these cards are Reno. I understand that this play is most likely going to cost me the game. He's going to Reno, stabilize, and we'll lose. I get it, but I think it's our only win condition because he just got 4 amazing spells. We are out of good resources. We could Frost over Doomsayer and stuff, but every draw is another draw towards Reno and another draw towards us losing, so it's all just going to be a problem. We do need to figure out the math here. I think the closest we can get him to is 2, unfortunately, because these do 4. That's 10, yeah. I think we just have to take him to 2 health. So here comes Reno, right, and the game is absolutely over. So I actually don't even have a way to do 2 next turn, so I need like the Frostbolt or some sort of Fireball or something. If there's no Reno, of course. If there's a Reno, obviously the game's over. There it is, yeah. He's only got 11 cards in deck, so super likely that he has it. Double Reno for double Reno for fun. That actually is bad. He can't use that Reno now because he drew 2. I mean, if he well, actually, as soon as he draws the first one, it won't matter. So never mind. That's not relevant. So I mean, we'll play this out, guys. We're gonna try to play this out. It's an impossible game for us to win. We don't even his 2 Kazakus potions are gonna be insane value. There's just no way for me to win this game now. That's why we had to go for it. Frankly, the fact that he had Reno in hand meant there was never a way to win this game. Yeah, Thalanos is not going to do it. We'll just empty our hand here, and obviously the game is out of reach and out of hand. That's tough. I mean, it felt like it was possible. All 3 games there, all 4 games, I don't know how many we played, but only the one was a win. And that one was kind of the fluke, if anything. I think that happened just because we got a nice little hand and somehow managed to pull off a miracle a bit. So, yeah, I don't think the Ice Mage, as I expected it wouldn't. It's just not a good deck. There's just not enough here. Freezing is cool, but just doesn't in the end do quite enough. If we could Shatter Face, it'd be pretty good, but unfortunately, there's just not enough here. Oh, he whiffed his Inkmaster Solia, by the way, because of the double Reno I mentioned. He can Reno as soon as he draws the Reno, but he can't do any other effects like Solia here, so it's pretty funny. The Bran enabled the Manic Soulcaster to put 2 Renos into his deck. He should have lethal on board. 9, 12, 14, 16, 17. Yeah, he does. Let him play it out, but Firelance Portal, let's see what it hits. Ooh, that's a pretty good minion, 5/6. Can't complain about that. Summon a 5/6 and do 5 damage is an insane spell. Okay, guys, so yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for me in the Ice Mage Decksperiment. I think I have to consider it a failure. Just doesn't do enough. This card, it froze things, but we never got a great matchup where I think that mattered. We faced too many decks that were spell-oriented and not minion-oriented. I wish we'd seen like a Pirate Warrior. Might have worked a little better against something like that. Maybe even a Dragon Warrior. Maybe another Dragon Priest game could have gone differently and gone better. But ultimately, if it doesn't work against Shaman and it doesn't work against Reno Mage, it probably doesn't work in this meta. So this deck is a failure regardless of what matchups we encountered just now in these first few games. I don't really even know how to change it. I think it's just not as good as a Reno Mage. So if you're going to be running Mage and you have that option, that's probably just going to work better for you. I don't think freezing is a strong enough effect. These cards, like Cryomancer, like I said, if it also froze minions, that might give it a little edge. If it was 4 mana, like the 4 mana 7/7, that would make it much better. But it's not, right? So the Demented Frostcaller, the one problem of its interaction with the Cryomancer, of course, is that minions don't stay frozen when it flips back to your turn usually. So that's a little bit hard to activate. So ultimately, this is just kind of a mishmash, hodgepodge deck that seems to be missing the power that it needs to really win games. And if you're going to include all this burst, just go for Freeze Mage, not Ice Mage. So, all that said, if you have any thoughts, comments, or questions on this deck, you know where to leave them. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time with a brand new Decksperiment, game on.